Nearly there.
Well, all right, we'll resume our meeting. We'll just come back from the lunch break, and we're just getting a few technical things sorted out. So the meeting should be underway now with our live streaming. We've come back from our lunch break, and then we were dealing with our matter in relation to our city centre COVID response and really making it a people-friendly city. Before we went to the break, we just needed to have a look at the motion. There was some wording that was proposed. The motion, it's been moved by Councillor Fulton, but we went to a breakout room. So somebody who was in that breakout room, if they could just report back on what's there, and there might be some wording to come out on the screen. So perhaps I'll go to Ms. Gabellini, and you can talk us through what we're looking at.
Sure, through you, Madam Mayor, we made some amendments to the 7th recommendation, and we can see them there in red. So we changed the 3.1 to 5 million, with the principle being that the 5 million would cover any of the options should, depending on what council's decision is following public feedback. And then we noted in there that officers are also seeking funding of $1 million from the Innovative Streets Fund, and that potentially a portion of the remaining balance could be funded by a subsidy from New Zealand Transport Agency.
Okay, that's fantastic. So that makes sense, I think, to everybody. So as long as everyone's happy with that, we can probably take that off the screen now. That's great. And we'll go back. And I'm actually going to ask if Councillor Rainey would like to second that, since it's come up from the City Centre Working Group. I think it'll be appropriate. Thank you. So any further questions? Councillor Noonan?
Right. I just want to be clear in my head what you've put up there. I think you put up 5 million, but how much of that would be ratepayer money?
I'm not sure we could answer that clearly at this point.
I won't be voting in favour of that going out to the public. It's a ridiculous amount of money in my mind. So I want to know.
Let's go to Miss Harrison. She's put her hand up.
I'll have a go. So that is the gross capital cost that needs to go into the budgets, into the capital budgets, and it would be going in as a provision or a placeholder effectively, and that we would be applying, and in the budgets we would be assuming the 51% subsidy and then applying for the $1 million from the Innovative Streets or whatever it's called. I wouldn't be budgeting for that, and that would probably, if we got that, that might potentially be on top of that 5 million.
Okay, thank you.
So sorry, that means 5 million. How much? I'm still not clear. I think if you make the resolution a bit clearer, I might be more comfortable, but at the moment I'd be asking you to do that in parts, that part separate, if it's not more clear, because I'm not happy with that.
Well, I'm confused about what's not clear, Councillor Noonan. Could you just help us understand?
I'm still unclear as the provision of the, and I know it's going out to consultation, but 5 million is a huge amount of money. And I'm still not clear how much of it you're thinking will be ratepayer funded. I just want some clarity over how much the ratepayer funding part would be. That's all I need.
And I think Ms. Harrison answered that to the best of her ability. It's an up to 5 million, but we're looking at the potential to get the NZTA subsidy, which is at 51%. But in addition to that, there is the Innovative Streets Fund that exists. And the only part I wasn't clear on is when Ms. Harrison, you were talking about that being additional external funding coming in, or you would see that as being offset by the 51%.
So I wasn't going to include it in the budget because it is less certain, okay. And so I suppose council then have the option whether that's on top of the 5 million if one of the solutions that was selected was above 5 million, or it was net.
All right,
And that
thank
would be
you.
a decision in the future. I hope that's clear enough. I mean, one way to correct that, you know, to make that resolution clearer would be if you wanted to put it as a total, put the 5 million as the capital expenditure amount.
Okay, so Councillor Noonan's nodding. Can we just bring that wording back up again? I think that might be useful. And then I've got Councillor Edgar and Councillor Skinner in my list here. So Nikki, can you just, it does actually say that.
It does actually say that. Sorry, it does talk about the capital budget amount, so I think that is clear.
Yeah, so it's a capital budget, yeah. Do we need the word provision in there? Or can I just, do you think, Nikki, is it better to call it capital budget provision of up to?
Through the chair, that might be clearer, because the options will be coming back to you. It's you know what I mean. You've still got to. I think with other similar decisions, we've called them provisions.
Lisa, are you comfortable with that? Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. We'll go back to the main screen, and I had Councillor Edgar and then Councillor Skinner, I think.
Yeah, I think my concerns have been covered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Skinner, and then Councillor Fulton.
Thank you for that. So if I get that right, and let's follow on to Councillor Noonan, was that we'd put aside that we'd borrow 5 million down the track if need be, but it could end up being 2.5 million if NZTA comes in on the Act, or something in between. And if we got that 1 million, that would be added to it. So we're anything from 2.5 million to 5 million that we may need to borrow, and we'd only draw that down if we decided to go ahead at that stage, if I'm correct.
I believe so, but it could be 500,000 or $1 million, depending on what the public feedback comes back.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
And what's the likelihood? Is it the NZTA? Is that a dead cert, or when you're saying it's a possibility, or was it sort of a bit of a flip of a coin? How keen are they on it, or likely to be on it?
I'm looking for Mrs. Parfitt, but I'm not sure if she's with us. I can't see Marg at the moment. So anybody else like to have a go at that one? Chief Executive?
Lisa put a hand up.
Lisa, oh Lisa, go. Okay.
So Ellen and Marg and I, we've had a couple of meetings with NZTA about the Innovative Streets Fund, and they are pretty excited about our application and how far advanced we are compared to other councils. But they also have a lot of uncertainty with their budgets as well, and things are changing all the time for them. So although we feel that we are well placed to make a good application, we can't really rely on that $1 million. I know that Marg has also been having conversations with the NZTA person in terms of the 51% subsidy. So we have talked to them about that. And not all of the works that are done, that could be done under those options, will be eligible for the subsidy, and that's why we've put in this recommendation of up to a 51% subsidy. But again, there is no certainty. We can't really, you know, it seems likely, but we can't really count our eggs before they hatch, so to speak.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Skinner?
Yeah, thank you for that. Quick follow-on to that. I see 3.1 million was originally included, but 5 million is saying just to cover all options. There must have been a reason why we had 3.1. Why not stick to 3.1?
Through the Mayor, we wrote this report really quickly, and I needed to put something in that, and I didn't really have a feel for what level of support there might be for the options. So in my quick decision making, I decided to stick the lowest number in.
Okay, thank you. Very good.
And we've surprised Lisa with our optimism and enthusiasm, which is really good. Councillor Fulton.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess I am a little bit confused after Councillor Noonan's questions, and I can't see the words in red any longer. But my understanding was is that the 5 million, the best case scenario is council would be paying 2.5 million, and NZTA would fund 2.5 million, and then we might get another $1 million, so our total budget might be up to 6 million. Is that reflected in the wording, or does the wording look like the 1 million would come out of the 5 million as well, in which case council would only be putting up 1.5 million? I can't see the wording any longer.
No, we have to take it down so that I can see everybody. Otherwise, I can't see if you want to ask a question. That was the wording. Okay. So I think maybe it's coming back again.
Really clear in the wording. Maybe just if Lisa or one of the GAs could ensure, if Nikki's thinking is that 1 million would be taking the budget up to 6, should it say 6 at the start? And then say including that option, or Pat, is there a way of saying of which council's proportion of not more than 2.5? I don't know.
So through the Mayor, so the way we've expressed it is how we normally express it for roading projects. So we put up the total budget, and then we would also show anticipated income from the transport agency on a separate line. Now, we don't know what that is yet. I'm hoping by annual plan time, we'll have a much better indication of what they might subsidise or not. But as Lisa said, they won't subsidise at all. They're not going to subsidise seats or those sorts of things. So yeah, the best case scenario is that they might put up 2.5 out of the 5, but I'd be stunned if they put that much up. If we got a grant from them, we were envisaging that could potentially be on top. It really depends which one you choose. Two of the options fit underneath the $5 million budget, in which case the grant would reduce our costs. But if we decided to close Trafalgar Street completely and spend $6 million, then the grant would be on top.
Okay, just remember there are multiple options here. So what we're doing is putting the top, and then we'll work from there. Okay, so
I know that the budget for even option 3, closing Trafalgar Street, is 800,000 to 12 million. So I think that I'm really comfortable with this. I'm mindful that when we did Church Street, it was unbudgeted, and that was one of the blocks that happened. So I'd rather make sure our budget reflects council's desire to do something. I think actually what we're getting is really important. And if you think about the crisis and the one way we can signal to our community that our CBD is really important to us, it's by activating our streets.
Okay.
So I'm comfortable with that.
Thank you.
And Rachel, can I speak? That's me sort of speaking to it.
I thought you've done your speaking. Good on you, because we can keep going. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that, Councillor Sanson. Any further questions? But we should be up to speaking to this, I think. Councillor Sanson and Councillor McGurk.
Yeah, thanks. Through the Mayor, I'm just speaking in favour of this recommendation. As I said earlier today, we're getting lots and lots of feedback from our community that they want to see us take a different approach to the way we've been doing things. And I think that this clearly signals that, and it's going to be great to put it out there and get their feedback and hear what they think. And just want to thank the staff, Lisa and Alan and team, because it's just a great piece of work. Amazing that it's ready to go for the innovative streets funding, and yeah, well done to you. I'm really excited about this. It feels like a good day on council.
Thank you, Councillor McGurk.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm quite happy with the $5 million as the capital, the capital budget. That's, I suppose, is, if you want to think of it as the top end of the budget. My understanding is, looking at the attachments, is the innovative streets is up to $1 million. We may or may not get some of that or all of that if we ask for it. 90% subsidy of whatever we do for that comes off that amount. You've then got the other subsidy, the FAR funding is half of the remaining amount. So, the best case scenario is anywhere between about 1.8 to, that's the best case, to up to 5 million, which is the absolute worst case. That's my understanding. So the number was going out there is basically the cost of the capital project, the capital cost of the project.
Thank you. Councillor Noonan and then Councillor Rainey.
Thank you. Yes, I will support this. Thanks for the clarification on the detail is important. I think it shows that we're actually, the staff have done a fantastic job and turned this around in a very quick time. And I think that's an awesome thing for Nelson, because we were already working on it. So we're working on a piece of work that's actually turned out to be very timely, and we're way ahead, I think, probably from others. I did mention it to my daughter who's in Sydney, and she was pretty impressed with us moving so quickly. We're in a different paradigm, and I think it's a really good thing that we've got this ready to go, and well done to all the staff. Yes, I was uncomfortable with the budget, but look, the public will let us know which option they're keen on, and I always look forward to receiving that feedback from the public. So the next bit's going to be the interesting part, but yeah, thank you to all involved for getting it done so quickly.
Thanks, Councillor Noonan. Councillor Rainey.
Yes, I'm in support of this. Obviously, I think it's a great move. I am going to be very interested to see what the public feedback is, but would like to remind councillors that we essentially are going to have to make a decision, and I would hope that we can make a decision pretty quickly and get on with it, because like the Mayor, I'd like to see this in place as soon as possible. I do want to remind everybody, it's really important, even taking into account option 3, with a potential capital cost of up to 12 million. This is all temporary overlay that we're talking about here. We're not talking about permanent changes to the street surfacing. This is stuff that can be removed and reused. And we have to bear that in mind. It is expensive. And we do need to be prepared to be able to explain that to the public at large.
Thanks, Councillor Rainey. Councillor Laurie.
Thank you. I agree with what Councillor Rainey was just saying, but I'd also point out the wooden structures that are part of these proposals that would extend the footpaths have a life expectancy of 10 years. That's or possibly longer, but that's what they're designed for. So while we are talking about temporary things, we're not buying stuff that's going to be flimsy. And I think it's fantastic work by the staff, and I'm really heartened by what I'm hearing from everyone around in this meeting. I just caution that given the way we are going out to the public, we're asking for feedback, it's not a normal consultation process. I have some concerns that potentially could be captured by some in the community who might be quite interested to go back to business as usual. I don't think this is a time for business as usual. I think that we need to hang on to how we're all feeling today about the direction we're heading in, and we need to keep that in mind when we get to the next stage in this decision-making process.
Thank you, Councillor Laurie. Well, I think we've got no one else wanting to speak. I just want to really thank the team for the work that you put into this. You know, this is about thought leadership, and I think we've really seen it with this project that's come forward. And it's also, thanks Ellen for your fantastic connections that you've got to be able to get us, some of the thinking, bring that thinking together, but also the connections back into your contacts through NZTA and the positioning, and particularly, thanks to Marg and everyone involved in this. This is actually, I think, what we need to be doing in a time of, to get through the next stages. We're still in response phase, but we've really got to start thinking quite differently. And I think we've all understood that. I think some of the numbers that you're aware of in terms of the impact on our people are quite sobering. But the most important thing is that we don't freeze. Okay, at the moment, the only thing we're freezing at the moment is zero rates for this year. But in doing that, that doesn't mean we freeze and stop. Actually, we've got to be as nimble as we possibly can be, and really innovative about what we're going to do, and just thinking every time, with every dollar that we're spending, how is that benefiting our community, and is it making a difference? So good work, guys, and I'll get ready to put the motion. I think we'll just do that with show of hands. All those in favour?
Aye. Can I have my right of reply? No.
Oh, sorry, Kate, I've got past that point. Is that all right? I've got past that point. That's carried. Right, okay, on to the next item. I don't know if Mr. Ruffle's still with us. Is he? He might have. I think the next item is the Nelson City Council water restrictions paper. Hello, Phil, you are there. Welcome to the meeting, Phil.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
We've got your paper and Mr. Light's there, David's there as well. So between the two of you and Alec is there, they've all popped up. Look at it all down the bottom of my screen. Welcome. What a team, what a good team. So would someone on the team like to present the paper?
I might start,
Thank
Madam
you.
Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Ruffle.
Madam Mayor, really in some form or another, water restrictions will be well familiar with council. They've been part of my life for my entire life. Most of our restrictions are anchored in resource consents that we have from our consents team for abstraction of water from the rivers. And one of the driving conditions of those consents is that we responsibly manage the water and have some form of demand management scheme in place for the city. With our new resource consent, we have a new set of trigger levels that were provided for us for the water supply in the dam. When they reach certain trigger levels, we're expected through that consent to initiate demand management across the city in the form of restrictions. Now, on a separate note, the Tasman District Council have also just done exactly the same exercise with their people. And it seems like an ideal opportunity for us to revisit the restriction levels that are required to meet our resource consent, and at the same time try and align as closely as possible with the Tasman District Council consent restriction requirements. Now, the paper sets out a lot of the background, and the new protocols are really the things that are the most different for councillors. It might be easier, Madam Mayor, if I just start asking or answering some questions.
Thanks, Mr. Ruffle. I think that will work. And quite a few were pre-circulated. So what I'll do is go to, if there's anyone that did pre-circulated questions and they would have asked them, they need them, then I'll go to you first. So I think that was Councillor Noonan, Councillor Edgar and Councillor Sanson. I've seen hands go up, and Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And through you, I've got two questions. So the first one is, what difference will the restrictions make to Nelson businesses? And I was really thinking of like the fish processing, etc., when I wrote this question.
Madam Mayor, the first two stages, at least, of the restrictions will have minimal impact on any of the businesses in the city. The restrictions that we're proposing in the first two stages try very much to try and reduce the sort of water use on watering lawns and plants and outside cars and such like. And it's not till about stage 3 that some level of meaningful restrictions on businesses would come into play. And at that stage, it would be back to councillors to make a call about the level of restrictions that they would feel comfortable imposing on businesses. In the proposals and the protocols that I've put in through there, it suggests that they start about 10% saving.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the second question was, I've noticed that we didn't consult on the report. So I just wondered why we didn't consult, particularly with affected businesses, and in particular with the proposal and the diagram that was provided.
Yes, Madam Mayor, this really is the first chance that I've had to bring this sort of discussion to councillors. I simply wouldn't talk to the business community before I'd spoken to councillors. And we can go to the business community at any stage after councillors have seen these documents.
Thank you.
So I guess that raises another question, Madam Mayor, and that's just regarding if we decide today to approve these restrictions, then how are the businesses going to give their feedback if we've already approved them? There's no two-step here by the look of it.
Madam Mayor, when I looked at this report against the significance policy that council holds, I didn't myself feel that there was anything within that what we're proposing would take it beyond a low and at very best a medium impact on businesses. Very much the discretion on what level of restrictions are imposed on the business community still remains with councillors. If council wishes to consult in a wider fashion, then we are looking to review our water supply bylaw this year, and we have a workshop scheduled with councillors in June. And at that stage, we can revisit how council would like to disseminate any of this information. That's no problem at all.
Thanks, Mr. Ruffle. I think it's a good suggestion that might be, we do it as a package at that point. But the councillors can have a discussion about that at the workshop. Any other questions, Councillor Noonan?
Just on that, Madam Mayor, then if we approve today, that means they're up and running. And if the businesses that are affected may be more than what, I would like to get the feedback from the most affected businesses, but like the piece of work we did this morning where we didn't go out and ask and then we ended up with an issue. I would feel more comfortable if we can do this in principle, but based on feedback coming back, if there's any issues, major issues that are raised, because we don't know what they are.
All right, well, that's an option for us. So we'll take some more questions, and I've just made a note of that. So we'll see how we go with the rest of the questions. Councillor Sanson, Councillor Edgar, Councillor Laurie, and Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My questions, which I'd sent, thank you for the your work on this, Phil. It was a really great report, really easy to understand, and I appreciate the clarity. And I think it's really great for our community to have clarity around these trigger points. So my only question really for you was around education, and I appreciate your really comprehensive response around all of the resources that the council already has around water restrictions and how to collect water and that kind of thing. I just ask that we maybe look at starting some of the education in the winter months when we're still getting plenty of water, just so that people can be kind of getting themselves ready ahead of the restrictions coming in. And is that possible?
Madam Mayor, yes, certainly it is possible for council to begin some of that, and I think Councillor Sanson's raised a good point. Within council itself, the environmental team are certainly well ahead of the water supply team in terms of creating reasonable education type information for our customers. And I think that's something where we need to move on to catch up with them. So certainly, and I agree.
Thank you. Councillor Edgar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, do we have a dry weather task force or equivalent?
Madam Mayor, Nelson City Council does not have a dry weather task force or equivalent, no.
Okay, because that's the mechanism that Tasman District Council uses, and we will have all heard most summers their announcements on water restrictions and when they're going to the different stages. So there's quite a good communication process around those. The businesses are well aware of those. So as part of putting these restrictions in, was there consideration to be able to have that quite nimble responsibility, but also that ability to have that ongoing communication with the people who might be impacted at the different stages?
Madam Mayor, that is an interesting question. Tasman District Council's dry weather task force is largely made up of those resource consent holders who individually abstract from the aquifer. And certainly Tasman District itself is represented on there as the Urban Supply Authority through its own resource consents. It makes it slightly different from Nelson, but the concept I think is very much worth considering. And no, I haven't looked at any depth about that, but I do think it certainly is worth looking at. Certainly.
Thank you, Phil. Chief Executive wants to add something.
So I suppose I have a slightly different view from Phil. Yeah, Tasman District, they have competing demands on an aquifer, and they have to make sure that they move in lockstep in reducing demand on that aquifer. And as the Deputy Mayor pointed out, they have to meet most years to talk about restrictions. We're in a much stronger position. And really, we've had diagrams like this operating since the Maitai Dam was built, and very effectively. And if you're looking at, just want to draw your attention to, I think it's page 118 of my electronic agenda. That's where the drawdown graphs are. I don't know if you can see that one, but so the dotted lines represent and this is my understanding, the consented where we have to start imposing restrictions. The solid lines demonstrate where we will move sooner. And so what this whole philosophy is to reduce the discretionary use of water early enough to protect the key users like industries. This is all about protecting the industries for as long as possible. The worst place you want to be as a water supplier is moving too late to protect your stored water. So this is making sure that we have a responsible plan, and we can react quickly and nimbly. And that's why when we have had serious issues, the councillors have seen these sorts of droughts. So we really don't need a dry weather task force the same. If we started getting down to stage 3, I'm quite sure that Phil would then be starting to talk to some of the major water users, King Salmon, Sea Lord, and the like, to understand how we could work together. But no, we don't need something like that every year, is my opinion.
Okay, I think it is, just following on from Councillor Sanson's comments, just that ability to have that good, clear communication and that responsiveness, and yeah, whatever the Nelson mechanism is, it's just now, you know, if we put these restrictions in place, it's just making sure that we do have that good and regular communication with anyone who might be impacted at different stages. Just my other one, and it's not clarified in the report or stated specifically in the resolutions. So what is the legal status under which the proposed restriction stages are being proposed? So because I understand the resource consent, but it's not part of the NRMP.
Madam Mayor, the paper with council is in 2 parts. One deals with urban water supply that council administers, and the other covers the rural water abstractions, which is quite nicely spelled out in our resource management plan and through resource consents. What we see in the proposed protocols are dealing purely with the urban water supply sections in great depth, and we have actually added in one last page that looks at what the resource management plan actually requires for the rural areas as well. So in terms of the rural areas, that's well covered with the NRMP. Councillors will be looking at that themselves through the preparation of the proposed Nelson plan. For the urban water supply, Nelson City Council runs a water supply bylaw. That bylaw says quite clearly that council can impose water restrictions at any stage to deal with seasonal issues or other network type issues. The bylaw itself is silent on the detail of what the restrictions look like. So they have always been set outside of that to give council the best opportunity to change with conditions that occur. And this is just following that same process.
I think we just need to be clear in the resolutions then, or because it isn't stated in the report, that this is basically a schedule to the existing water supply bylaw, which also maybe answers the question as to why we're not doing consultation, because the bylaw already specifically enables restrictions to be put in place at any time, and this is just specifying, you know, what they are, but the resolutions don't refer to the water supply bylaw or that this is a schedule. And I think the minutes need to also specifically note that the water supply bylaw enables the restrictions to be put in place. And so we're not actually changing the bylaw, but also we just need to mention the bylaw because it isn't in there at all.
All right, so I'm going to leave those of you to have a think about that while I do some more questions as to whether that needs to change, unless I saw Pat put his hand up. Are you able to answer that now, or do you want to have a bit of time?
I'm uncomfortable with the words scheduled to the bylaw. That's implying that then we need to go through, my concern would be that implies we need a bylaw process to change it. In support of the bylaw, those sorts of words we can think about.
All right,
yeah.
Well, you have a think about that while I continue with my list. And Councillor Laurie is next.
I don't need my question to be answered. I got an answer online. I'll keep things moving.
Okay, brilliant. Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through to Officer Ruffle. You mentioned when you were speaking about TDC's requirements, and I drew from your comments that perhaps there was some advantage for us to be in some respects in tandem with them in respect of our urban water supply. What's your thinking on that?
Madam Mayor, certainly Nelson City Council and Tasman District Council's water supply do overlap slightly, as we understand, through the Wakatu Industrial Estate and the residential areas off of Champion Road. Both of those areas are currently supplied with water from Tasman District Council, and both of those areas are subject to Tasman District Council's water restriction protocols every year. I think it's helpful if the two councils, which are very, very close to each other, can use similar protocols. They're not identical. Ours are slightly different from Tasman's, but similar protocols. And I think it also helps the wider Tasman, Nelson region if we can be seen to be treating water, which is a particularly valuable resource, with the same level of concern and seriousness.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Skinner.
Thank you for that. So follow on to that, I've got 2 or 3 questions. Aligning, just seeing the value in aligning with Richmond and Tasman, because we've got our own water supply apart from those boundary areas. And is that correct though? If Tasman's supply to our Champion Road, for example, comes in, then would only those Champion Road people be notified to reduce their usage? We wouldn't need to notify Nelson to reduce their usage as well, because we've got plenty of water?
Madam Mayor, yes, certainly. Every single year, those Richmond supplied residents receive separate notifications from the rest of the city, and the restriction systems and protocols are different.
So I was sort of raising a bit of concern with these changing. I see what we're trying to achieve prudently, but my concerns are, for example, this last summer, TDC got low on water and we took messaging out to reduce our water usage, and then we got in that area where we were potentially not going to be watering our parks and reserves, etc., because we didn't want to be the sort of the bad guys watering while telling the rest of the town not to water. Hindsight's great, but in the end we end up having a lot of water in our dam, and we may not have needed to have reduced. Obviously we had to be prudent at that time because we didn't know what the future was. But my concern is if we start triggering early or following TDC's triggering, then we get a situation where we can't water our sports fields, and then we cost us a lot of money having to reinstate those, when in fact we may not have needed to have reduced our watering. So my concern is pulling these trigger points earlier. We in a sense sort of cut ourselves to the corner where we can't water our own sports fields because we're trying to be good tenants of our water when we don't need to.
Madam Mayor, these are interesting points. Last summer, of course, councillors will be aware that we didn't have any restrictions.
No.
So the trigger points that would trigger Nelson City Council imposing restrictions are quite different from the trigger points that Tasman District Council will use. So there's no risk that by having the same type of protocols based on different triggers that we will be caught up needing to impose restrictions at an earlier stage than we would ordinarily impose on the city. The areas that are supplied with water from Tasman District Council are always going to be different. They get water from TDC. We must follow their protocols.
Fair enough. My concern is for watering our sports fields, etc. If I'm looking at the graph on page 118, we may then start saying to the public, hey, we just got to take some steps a bit early. Then we're in a sense telling ourselves we could also have to step early and not watering, and then we can't water our field. My concern is by shifting that trigger point earlier in that summer period, we're endangering our sports fields by following our own cautious approach. I'm just concerned that we're being a bit too cautious. A bit like it last summer, I was concerned that we were not watering some of our essential, potentially not watering some of our essential fields, and it costing us unnecessarily. Does that make sense?
Madam Mayor, just as I mentioned, over this last summer, we did not impose restrictions on the city. And councillors, if we've had a look at those protocols, we'll see that there is a separate protocol for service industries such as council, and we do expressly talk about restrictions on watering some of our premier sports fields and our cricket greens and croquet greens and such like. And they're allowed to be watered really right up through stage 3, stage 4 restrictions. And it's only at stage 5, when we're in some really considerable strife, that we would hold back on those premier fields watering.
All due respect, we did messaging and we were restricting watering of lawns, etc., people's private lawns, and that had the flow-on effect that we couldn't be seen to be watering our sports fields. And this is what I'm worried about. Am I missing something? Am I missing something here? We would end up in that same situation too early.
I think Councillor Skinner, what Mr. Fox says, we've got a range of triggers.
Yeah.
And we've got a range of assets where the triggers apply for different assets. So, or the repercussions. So, in terms of good asset management, we continue to water our premier grounds because actually
we nearly
the cost
didn't.
of not doing so.
We nearly didn't.
Well, we were in it the previous year. We were in a fair amount of trouble. So, I think part of what we do look at is hopefully a lot of this will resolve itself as Tasman District Council get a more secure water supply. That should certainly help. But we were at the point of having to look at tankering water from Nelson to actually keep Tasman going at that point.
Correct.
It was a very tough year.
Yep.
I just go to the Chief Executive, and then I really want to get this one wrapped up because we've got a bit more business to do yet.
So, thank you, Madam Mayor. If you look at that page 118 again, 2 years ago, the problem was the drought struck very early. So that the water level was dropping down onto the top of the flat piece of the blue line. And we always have to be mindful that we aim to withstand a 60-year drought, but by using our restrictions, we aim to get a lot further than that. But you don't know how long the drought's going to be, so you have to start reacting early. We have to start acting responsibly. And it was across the blue line when it was still flat and was dropping very steeply. And the other thing was, Tasman District Council were in a power of trouble, and we were trying to help them as well, which was steepening our rate of drop. And it was the combination of the two that saw us starting to impose tougher restrictions. The water level last year dropped to the same levels, but it was later. So it was chasing down the slope of the curve. And that's okay, because we know that usually it rains in the wintertime. So that you accept the fact that your reservoir is going to drop steadily during the summer and recharge during the winter. But what happened 2 years ago was it dropped right at the start of summer, far faster than we were comfortable with. So we react to protect, well, to protect our key assets and to protect our key industries. But it was exacerbated by the fact that we were helping Tasman at the same time. And as the Mayor has said, we expect that within the next 2 or 3 years, that won't be such an issue for us again.
Okay, thank you. Last questions from Councillor Fulton, and we've really got to get this one going. So I want to know the officers have thought about whether they need to do any changes to this being in principle. The question, that was the issue raised by Councillor Noonan, and the question of whether we need to reference the bylaw. So we've got some changes, and then the only other one was in principle. We'll go to Councillor Fulton.
Madam Mayor. Look, I'd like to move it with those changes. I just want to say congratulations to Phil. I think this is a really great document. It lays out our plan really well. It's something we asked for a couple of years ago as a result of some fairly ad hoc decisions to stop watering things and what we kept watering and stuff. And I'm really pleased that we've managed to pick up something which TDC's been doing. Clearly they've been doing it quite well, and then duplicate that and bring it to Nelson and deliver what looks to be really logical, and it considers the difference between residential flower gardens and residential vegetable gardens, and it really considers that in terms of the community as well, community gardens versus the importance of retaining our native plants, new plants. So I'm really pleased to see this before us, and I'd like to move the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Eggers indicated she's seconding that, but do you want to speak, Councillor Egger? No. Councillor McGurk? No. Okay, and then the amendments, I think Councillor Noonan wanted them up on the screen again so she could see them. So just pop those up. I think they're on their way. Kelsey. I'm just going to put those amendments up on the screen, I think.
So just a clarification, what's number 2 and number 3 approved? What's the difference between number 2 and number 3?
Well, you're receiving the report and its attachments in number 2, you're approving the plan and for the reservoir level plan.
Yep.
And then the next one, you've proposed city water restrictions descriptions to be implemented. So different aspects, different numbers, documents.
Resolution 2 refers to attachment 1 and resolution 3 to attachment 4.
Okay, everyone's happy with that?
Yes, I think it's really timely.
Right. Okay, right. I'm going to, Councillor Noonan.
Just clarifying that will actually then go out for consultation. I'm not clear that is. Does the bylaw? No. So what are we doing about the consultation? We're not.
Well, I've asked the officer from
so I'm waiting for some advice. So if I get some advice that satisfies me, then I'll be able to vote. At the moment, I'm not sure.
No, when we're writing this report, we never considered that we will be consulting on these drought restrictions. We've actually had a diagram like this sitting in the background since the Maitai Dam, soon after the Maitai Dam was built, and been applying it. This is a refinement. We can certainly talk to the major industries when we review the water supply bylaw, but no, I don't think this is very much an operational issue. We want support from the governance groups so that everyone's familiar with it, but no, we definitely don't think we need to consult on this.
Okay, so
I'll just say then, I'll just speak then, if they consult with the major users of water, that will satisfy me. I just don't like passing things without consulting the major users. I just feel uncomfortable with that.
Well, what I think we can do is some engagement with the major users. So I think it's about engagement, and I think there was a suggestion just as you go through the bylaw process. I mean, they're big users of water. It's good to have good communication and dialogue with those people who are big users of water. And actually, we need to understand what their future plans are. That's important to our thinking around asset management. So as part of the asset management bylaw process, we would be wanting to engage with those key customers. It makes sense to me. Yep, everyone's thumbs up for that. Right, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Anyone against? Right, it's against. Yvonne's a yes or a no? She's a yes. She's a yes. Okay, okay. Oh, good, it's all good. It's carried. Now, before we disappear onto the next one, I now have to move the, we've been sitting down for too long. Motion to say hello. We've been sitting down for too long and going beyond 6 hours, and I need a seconder because we're not quite finished yet. So thank you, Councillor O'Neill-Stevens. I will put the motion. All those in favour? Okay, and against, I carry. That's done. Right. Can we just crack on now? I know, and just see if we can get this governance statement matter done. There's some wording coming. Mary is with us. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Phil, very much for the work that you did on that last paper, by the way, and David and Alec and team. It's really good work. Much appreciated. Now, Mary, you've got some other words to put up on the screen, I think. We might just start with those. So just when you're ready, you can speak to what's here.
Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Mayor, I take the report as read. I thank very much indeed all the elected members. We've had a flurry of activity of feedback on the governance statement over the last couple of days, which I've been working through. And I feel that rather than, and I'd like to talk you through those main things, the main pieces of feedback that have come through. But rather than try and wordsmith the governance statement with the bits of feedback that have come through, I wondered whether or not it would be good to take a similar approach as we took to the Code of Conduct back at the beginning of the triennium, when feedback was coming through, that I collate it all, I rework the document, and then work with a few elected members to ensure that I have captured the feedback that all elected members have given me. So that is why I am putting forward a slightly amended staff recommendation at this point.
All right, thank you for that framing. So I think what would be best is if you could maybe just cover off, just so what your feedback you've had, and then if there's anything missing, that will be a good time just to capture. And I don't mean wordsmithing, I just think if there's concepts or matters that are not captured, that from what Mary's going to tell you, then now it'd be a good idea for you to tell us.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Mayor. So the first thing I do want to mention, as this was raised by several people with the actual terminology that was used in the document, what I have tried to do wherever possible is retain total alignment with either the legislation, if that's what I'm replicating, or our other documents. So either whether or not that's council policies or whether or not it's documents such as our delegation register. So that explains some of the reason why terminology that has been included was selected. So I've then had feedback, and if I just work through that now. So Councillor Laurie, thank you very much indeed. You raised the issue of the fact that there is no mention in the governance statement about workshops. I think it's an extremely good point and something that really perhaps should be included, because it's another mechanism for our public to access council, to access elected members, and to get a feeling for our governance processes and our activities. So I would propose to include information about the types of workshops that we hold, the fact that all our workshops are open to the public, and explain
No, they're trying to sprint now and finish.
Provide information on.
Patrick, I'd just like to point out that you're not muted. Thank you. Sorry, Robin. So sorry, Mary. Apologies.
No worries. And also to explain where people go to find the information about where and when our workshops are taking place. So we have that information on our website. So that's how I was going to propose to incorporate Councillor Laurie's feedback. Secondly, then I've got feedback from Councillor O'Neill-Stevens, who has proposed some wording with regards to addressing our current situation and the COVID-19, particularly Council's response to the current challenges and where we're looking to support local businesses, community organisations, as well as our residents and ratepayers. I did feel it would also be good, and thank you, Councillor Edgar, who raised this, was mentioning as a result at the moment, as a result of the emergency provisions and changes to the Local Government Act, that has allowed you as elected members to continue your business in the current situation by accessing, attending meetings remotely. So I thought that it captures where we're at the moment whilst you are adopting the governance statement. Thank you too for the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Noonan both brought up the subject of the absence of any mention to do with our external appointees to our committees and subcommittees. As we're required to use to include information relating to our governance structures and processes, I think that this would be an extremely good idea. And the suggestion has been that we include information regarding the appointment, the performance review, also that we are complying with best practice and Audit New Zealand recommendations for having an independent chair to our Audit and Risk Committee. So I would expand a couple of paragraphs to cover that off and to explain how they fit in with the appointment of or with elected members. The Deputy Mayor, I must say thank you very much to Councillor Edgar. She gave me some fantastic feedback. But other main points that Councillor Edgar raised was that she would very much like to see, I touch on the subject of under the Local Government Act, some powers are not permissible to be delegated down to subordinate decision-making of bodies such as committees, subcommittees, or to the Chief Executive or other officers. And it's probably a good idea to have that included, the relevant section from the Local Government Act, so that this is a very good standalone document rather than somebody having to sail back through to the New Zealand legislation website to find that information. So I would include that. Let me have a look. And then Councillor Noonan has raised several points, and my understanding is, Councillor Noonan, you want to talk to those yourself.
Councillor Noonan.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks, Madam Mayor, and through you. Look, I've just got a couple more. I see that the Nelson 2060 has been removed, and we haven't had a conversation about that, but I think you've got a reason for that. Maybe you'd like to articulate the reason.
So Nelson 2060, Council has now adopted a new vision and new mission, which is why Nelson 2060 was not included in this governance statement. Perhaps the group manager, Claire Barton, if you want further information on that, might be able to provide a more in-depth response to that. But that was why it hasn't been included in this governance statement, as you now have a new mission and a new vision.
I'd probably, Mary, I'll just give some feedback on that. I don't know that that's appropriate myself. So Nelson 2060 remains our brilliant basic. So what it does is it's the found platform. It's a brilliant basic. That's how we use it within our vision. So I think for those councillors who are part of building that process, if they could just give me a thumbs up to go, is that's where we got to. It still remains. It's still a very live document for us. It hasn't been superseded. It's the brilliant basic that sits as a platform for the vision.
Well, if it was going to be removed, I certainly would want to have a conversation.
Yes, I would too. So I think
that's right. It's the brilliant basics, and the smart little city is our point of difference. So that's how it was framed to us when we workshopped it. That we retained the 2060 as our foundation document. We should be delivering across all of those areas all the time. The smart little city is our point of difference and what we're working towards.
Okay, so we'll need to fix that one. Thanks, Councillor.
So that was the reason why I raised it, because I thought there might need to be a conversation. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
One of the other ones was, and I've only got a couple left, page 159 was the responsibilities of the Chief Executive. where it mentions, and I don't think we've quite got the wording right on the type of advice. So that just needs a wee tweak, I think.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Noonan is referring to the sentence which stipulates that the Chief Executive will be providing adequate advice. And it's fair to say that that is what we included in our delegation register that was adopted last November. Originally, my understanding was that that was lifted from the Local Government Act legislation. And if you look back at it currently, certainly the section regarding the Chief Executive responsibilities is peppered with the word adequate. I suspect it means the alternate view that of the word of the meaning of the word. Sorry, I'll get my sentence out correctly. The meaning of the word, which is sufficient advice. But looking at this particular sentence with regards to advice from the Chief Executive to elected members, I think it would be appropriate just simply to remove the word adequate, and that now reflects what the legislation says.
Thank you. And the reason why I thought that I didn't think adequate was best practice. I think we expect and receive better, much better than adequate. So I think that's a reflection of what we are receiving. I just don't think that's a good enough word. And the only other one I had, thank you, Mary, apart from removing my home phone number, and I don't know whether there are others that want to do that, is the working group, the Green Meadows working group has not been listed, and I think you've got a reason for that.
So the Green Meadows working group wasn't included in the delegation register, but we can certainly put that back in.
That's all I have. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. All right, any other things that come to mind? Councillor Edgar.
I was just going to note that there are also, just in case other councillors have noted them, there's a few tidy ups in different areas to do with the iwi relationship that's and the partnership there. So that's one area that sort of flows through different sections, not just that one section of the governance statement, but in different areas, and that would be part of the tidy up as well. And yeah, all the other minor ones I'm not going to run through.
Thank you. Okay, it's just one that I had noted, and I'm having to go off a very old version. I've had everything electronic today, but I did have an original governance statement. I do recall that when it came to, yes, in the where there's a description of council's priorities, the Smart Little City vision, that we then come into a heading that's called the Annual Plan 2020, and there's a comment that the council has 3 focuses for the 2021 annual plan, which is creating a sustainable transport culture, housing affordability, and intensification in the Maitai River precinct. But they do not relate to the annual plan, they relate to the triennium. Okay, so they go for the full triennium.
Thank you. Yes, I picked that one up. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, all right. Councillor Noonan?
Has it been moved?
I don't think so. Would you like to move that? Somebody care to second? Oh, I can't see you all at the moment, I've got the chat up. Thank you, Councillor Rika. Any further questions? No, in that case, I will put the motion, all those. Thank you very much, Mary. Questions? Oh, in favour, so hands up. Right, in favour, aye, all done, right. Thank you very much. Against, no, nobody against, carried. Fabulous. All right, so that I think is the, oh no, it's not the conclusion of the public agenda. There's now an item on the amendments to delegations register and standing orders, and I think that will be Mary as well. So Mary, I'll let you speak to this one as well, I think, or is that EJ? EJ. Hello, EJ.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
We're getting there, EJ. Taking a little bit longer than I'd hoped for, but anyway, we're getting there. So, hello.
Hi. So this is a brief report, which I'm very happy to take as read. I'll just note 2 very, very minor amendments, which a couple of elected members have picked up in the last couple of days. So the first relates to the hearings panel other, and it relates to the chairing aspect. So councillors who have previously undertaken a Making Good Decisions course.
Come on, Mum.
Suggesting, my apologies, we're now suggesting
All right.
that gets changed to elected members who have previously completed the Making Good Decisions course. It's a very, very small change, but it does carry a slightly different meaning. Completed is a more accurate word, so we're very happy to make that change. The second change is on the elected members' leave of absence procedure. My apologies again, I don't have any other adults at home at the moment.
That's all right, EJ. You're doing fine. If it helps to put somebody up so we can wave, we can do that.
The very, very final page of your agenda, the very final bullet point states elected members remain entitled to attend and vote at any meetings. The word "at" was just missed there, so yeah, adding an "at" will make that read much better.
Thank you, EJ. All right, so they're the changes. So have we got any questions for EJ? Everyone's had a read through this report. It was a very good report, EJ. Well, that's no questions at all. That's fabulous. Okay, in that case, would somebody, don't disappear though, EJ.
I'll move.
Who's at home today?
Yes, I was going to say, what's their name?
I have Isla and Connor at home with me today. They're 5 and 2, so they're a little bit not quite of the age to understand. Please don't disturb.
No, that's quite all right. I can remember when Isla was born, so I can't believe she's 5. Okay, so been moved, and so we had it moved and seconded. Yes, we have. Councillor Bywater and somebody to second. Who hasn't been in the book today? Who is it? Councillor McGurk, where are you gone? Yes, second, right. Moved and seconded. That's good. All right, no questions or debate. In that case, I will put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Fantastic. Thank you, EJ. Thanks for that work. Really appreciate that. Good luck with the rest of the afternoon. All right, so that I do believe completes the work. No, there's one more, is there? No, that's all right, because I've just got the amendments to the governance statement. So I think we're ready to go into public excluded business. Can I just check on that? Have everyone got a different view? Have I forgotten to do anything, Elaine?
No, through you, Madam Mayor, that's correct.
All right, so how about we move into public excluded business? We'll just have a 5-minute stretch, is that all right? 5-minute quick stretch, and then we'll be back into do whatever's in public excluded. So I will move, we go into public excluded, seconded by Councillor Bywater. I'll put the motion, all those in favour, aye, against, carried, and we will now